Oh, yeah. That pineapple and fruit is still there rotting. I don't know why somebody put it there. Probably some kind of voodoo crap. Anyway, here I am. It's Thursday. I finished work and I'm done for the week. Now, if my customer pays me on time, I'll be happy. Well, anyway, what am I doing? I'm on my way to Fresco y Mas, but not the regular one. The Fresco y Mas over here is kind of worthless. They don't have a sale, so I'm going to go to the other one, which is a few miles further. And yep, that just means more bike riding. You probably notice the usual squeaking sound is not present on the bicycle. And that's because basically what I did, I lubricated it. Now this is one of those full suspension bikes and the shock has gone bad. I picked this bike out of the trash, so you know it's rusty. It needs a new shock and it's a mess. So what I do, if you probably look down, you'll see it's covered in motor oil. I have the only bike that leaks oil at the bike rack. The reason it's like that is because I've taken the used oil from maintenance or, wow, look at the iguana, or other things that I've done. And basically, I just pour the used oil all over the bicycle. It helps prevent rust and also gets rid of the squeaking and other noises. So that works out really well. Let's see, I saw an iguana. Looks like there's a coot over there. I don't see any other iguanas here. And I seem to have the wind behind me, at least in this direction. I have a feeling, though, it'll be going into my face when I go to the south. Oh, this is a lizard somebody ran over. Anyway, what have I been doing this week? Just the usual, working, trying to keep up with YouTube videos while working. You know how that goes. And thankfully, although it's been hot, it hasn't been a stormy week. I had a little bit of rain, but not a lot. So it was a pretty basic week. Now, on the weekend, I may have a job to do on Saturday afternoon. I also have a friend that may be coming into town. So the weekend may be a little bit busier than usual. As you know, last weekend, I lost power. So things got to be really interesting when I was doing my live stream. Anyway, we'll see what happens over the weekend. Now, to make things a little bit more interesting, I have to admit that I do like to keep up with some of the YouTube videos. As you know, last weekend, I was on with our friend Mitch, the old guy carnivore. And if you're not aware of his story, just look on YouTube for old guy carnivore and you can see what he's been able to do at almost 80 years old. Really improved his life with a carnivore diet. He has a show, 4 times a week. Morning coffee with Mitch. It used to be every day. But when he had his stroke, he had to stop. And then as part of the recovery process, it was 1 day, then 2 days, and more days until it probably will be every day again. But he had a setback. Obviously, when he was in the hospital, they fed him duck food, so he wasn't able to continue on the carnivore diet like he would have wanted to. Oh boy. Anyway, but he's making videos about his recovery and about the challenges that he faces and so on. Another trend that's been out there is the wonderful sugar diet. Another fad that some people came up with as a way to get attention. Now you have to realize it takes time, it takes effort, it takes resources to make and edit YouTube videos. If you're like me and you just strap a camera or phone to your body or stick it in your pocket and go for a ride like this, you're not really going to edit anything. This is mostly just so that people have something to look at. They have nothing else to do. Or people that I know. It doesn't seem to have a really wide audience. People are not flocking in. I don't get thousands of views. I get maybe a few hundred. And that's fine. The videos that seem to get the most views on my channel are the ones where I did a more dedicated conversation. Like when I was sitting in my living room talking about a friend of mine who tried the carnivore diet, experienced some improvements, but died anyway of heart disease. And like I told him, what you eat isn't going to fix all your problems. It's just part of the system. You lose your finger to a circular saw, changing your diet isn't going to bring it back. If you damage your heart from years of laziness, poor diet, and other issues, you're not going to be able to rebuild it simply by changing your diet. Now, changing your diet allows you to improve your lifestyle. If you could maybe get a little more exercise, be a bit more active, you could probably make improvements. You'll never be what you were when you were younger, but you could definitely slow down the decline. The fact is, and this is what I've said for many years, as you get older, your body begins to fall apart. Oh, look at a squirrel. All living things, no matter what they are, go through sort of a rebuild, a build-up, breakdown, and build-up process. Think about a tree. A tree can live a really long time. But the thing is, no part of that tree is going to live more than a certain period of time. You think about it. Trees drop leaves. The leaves are the part of the tree that makes food. Yeah, look at the lizards mating. Look familiar. Anyway, with that being said, the reason why a tree lives so long is because it's constantly renewing parts of it. The wood that makes up the trunk of the tree does not renew. It's made and then that's it. Can't rebuild what rots. What the tree can do is grow around it. And of course, trees do have leaves and they have other parts that are disposable. So that's a little something that a lot of people just don't really think much about. But these shrubs, they can be pruned and they can be kept to a small size. But this is just part of the process. Now that being said, there's a few things you have to keep in mind. All living things are made the same way. Animals, including humans, are made of cells, and each cell has a limited lifespan. You could extend it a little bit, but sooner or later, that cell is going to die. Then it has to be replaced. So it's a constant process of replacement. It's actually quite interesting. So basically, even though you're the same person, You're not the actual same physical being that you were when you were a kid. Even when you reach your full size, there's a certain amount of change that takes place. Every time that cells are remade, there's going to be some kind of change. That's just the way that it is. Yep. All right. So, with that in mind, you have to realize that no matter what you do, no matter how you live, no matter where you are, sooner or later, the system will break down and you'll be gone. Just like if you go out in the street here, your life will end pretty quickly. You'll be run over. At any time, you could be on your bike or even in your car. Somebody's reckless, they crash into you, and it's over. You could be driving the biggest truck, and a guy going 150 miles an hour on a motorcycle crashes into the driver's door of your truck, and you're done. But if you think about those things all the time, you're not going to last very long. A certain amount of challenge, a certain amount of danger seems to make life worth living. Living in a way where you never have to challenge yourself. You never have to do anything difficult. You never really have to think. What does that do to you? Well, all you have to do is look at some of the wealthy families that are out there. Their kids, they always talk about it being spoiled rotten. Many of these rich kids, they have so many resources available. They don't really have to think. If something goes wrong, somebody else takes care of it. And that's really what you're dealing with. What? Okay. This silly thing, this phone mount, seems to like to fall over. I think the screw is stripped. Oh well, anyway. Let me get back to what I was saying. People that are privileged, people that have all the resources they need, they do have an advantage in not having to struggle, and therefore they have the opportunity to be more productive and live longer. And it's a fact. People that have more money, on average, live longer than those that are poor. But there are exceptions. You have people out there that have a lot of resources, and yet they'll die in their 60s, maybe even 50s. And usually it's because of excessive risk-taking or some other crazy ideas, cancer and disease. Think about some of the richest people that have ever lived. Now you got old timers like Warren Buffett that just don't kick the bucket very easily. He's loaded with money, but he has a low stress attitude. He's got the right connections. So really, there's not much risk in his life. But on the other hand, you might have someone like Steve Jobs, one of the founders of Apple Computer. How old was he when he died? I think he was somewhere around my age, 55, 56, 57. I don't know. But believe it or not, in about 24 hours, I will be 57 years old. Wow, that's pretty amazing. And here I am, riding the same path that I did when I was in my teenage years. Although back then, this was a 2-lane road, and all of this was rural. So I had to ride on that little sidewalk, which wasn't very good, but it was usable. So it is kind of interesting when you look back and you see what things are possible. Of course, anything's possible. if you want to put it that way. But understanding where you've been gives you a good idea of where you're going to be going. You can recognize patterns. And if you take a look at, for example, carnivore community, you could see it's following a pattern. What kind of pattern is that? Well, whenever you have groups of people, when they first start out, it usually starts with outliers. People that are strange, people that are just very different. And then eventually, some of these people start to become more appealing. You go, well, this is totally different. Now, everything goes through cycles. And this is something that people forget. Many individuals, they're searching for answers. You remember a company called Radio Shack? Well, at one time, they had a saying. And that saying was, you've got questions, we've got answers. Of course, we all know that Radio Shack doesn't really exist anymore. Radio Shack went out of business, pretty much like any other company does. Get in debt, don't follow trends, and get deleted, basically. So it is kind of important to understand some of the things that we have to deal with. Now, once you understand the pattern of how systems work, it's a good way of looking at the world. Now, people are going to go out there, they're going to say, hey, I got a solution for your problem. Again, you got questions, we got answers. You got problems, we got solutions. Now, some people are going to say, well, someone like me, for example, I don't really know if there's a solution to your problem. That's not my field of expertise. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a plumber. I'm not an electrician. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know. But I had a problem like yours, and this is what I did, and this is the result. That right there, in my opinion, is a pretty good compromise. Because if you think about it, you can actually, well, you can take a chance. You don't have to be dogmatic. Now, there are some matters where independent thinking is frowned upon and generally not allowed. One of them would be religion. If you're trying to debate somebody on religion, reason doesn't matter. It all comes down to faith, writings, and stuff like that. You do what you're told, or else the big guy upstairs is going to take you out. Somebody plowed that fence. But when it comes to other things in the world, you don't have to be that way. You don't have to treat the whole world like it's some kind of religion. You can treat the world in a scientific way. The problem is people's emotions, opinions, and feelings always seem to get in the way. This is a constant problem, and it's a problem that's not really easy to deal with. Because they always say, two things you don't want to talk about with people: politics and religion. But a lot of times, people will take that mentality into things that are neither. For example, diet and lifestyle. Diet is a big one. For many, many years, they told us, you want to be healthy, you have to eat low fat, complex carbohydrates, plenty of fruits and vegetables. You need those antioxidants. You need carbohydrates for energy. But what is the reality? The reality is somewhere in between. Sure, you could get energy from carbohydrates, but you can also get energy without them. If that was not true, how am I able to ride a bike in 91-degree weather and not be out of breath? And this is, it's going to be a pretty long ride. By the time I'm done with this, probably a 10-mile ride. Not that big of a deal. Now, traffic is not that bad today. I could have driven here, but I'm just trying to prove a point. But many people, they take this to a religious level. And this whole idea of low fat, high carbohydrate has been around for a long time. There's some mangoes there. And it continues to be around. So, realistically, what does that have to do with us that eat the carnivore diet? Well, the problem is some people that are on the carnivore diet are behaving the same way. They act like the carnivore diet is the only way to go. If you want to be healthy, you have to eat carnivore only. But is that correct? Well, you know anybody that eats plants that has lived over 90? Of course you do. There is no proof that eating plant material of the right kind is going to shorten your life in any way. Obviously, if you eat immediately toxic plants, your life will be shortened very critically. Think about if you were to go out there and eat some castor beans or some rosary peas. You would never live to see the next day. That's just the way it is. But on the other hand, there's a lot of other things that are not as clear. Some people believe that any carbohydrates are toxic. But there's no evidence of that scientifically. Your body actually makes them, so they're not toxic. What it seems to be is just taking too much in. It's like water. You need water to live. Your body can't make water, but if you drink too much of it, you can dilute yourself to the point where you're just not going to be able to survive. What a mess. I guess it is a good thing I didn't drive this way. I'd be all frustrated. Look, they got some kind of accident. They got cops over there. Look at this mess. What a disaster. Oh boy. Okay. Gotta keep alert. All right, I think we're safe to cross. There we go. Okay. Got a tow truck over there. We got the walk light and a pedestrian. There's another police car. They don't even use the turn signal. Hey, this is Miami. Not even the police use turn signals. Anyway, you can't lead by example, right? So, the point that I'm trying to make, and it's probably a rambling one by now, is that it's not really advantageous for anyone to be dogmatic and say, well, you have to do this or else. And what really bothers me to this day are the people that say that because they eat a certain way, they're going to live to 120. One person that I really laugh at, and I get a big joke out of, is the so-called Dr. Michael Greger, a very famous vegan doctor of some kind. I don't even know if he's ever practiced medicine, but he's an arrogant attitude. Has a website called nutritionfacts.org, or as I call it, nutritionfalsehoods.org, pushing the plant-based diet. The diet which has never been proven to be any more than any other diet. I know people personally who have been on the plant-based diet for most of their life. And guess what? Just like anybody else, they get sick. In fact, my one friend, she's been on the plant-based diet for at least 30 years that I know, verified. She's been on antibiotics at least, I think, 4 times. I've never been on an antibiotic. I don't think I've ever had a prescription medication. The last time that I do remember going to a pharmacy was sometime in the late 70s. I think in 1978, I found a bottle of cough medicine. And I do also remember getting those little drops they put in your ear for ear infections. And, we had the over-the-counter stuff, obviously. There were a couple of other things, but nothing really outstanding. But that's really what I've been dealing with. Now, with that being said, is that really proof of anything? No, it isn't. As far as I know, I could have all my arteries almost completely blocked. They could probably be like 90% blocked. And one day, I'm gonna get on this bicycle and I'm just gonna fall over in this heat. Here I am going 5 to 10 miles on a bicycle, not drinking any water. I'm gonna get dehydrated. I don't use salt, so electrolytes are probably out of it. I could have a heart attack at any moment. Wow, somebody actually has a turn signal. It's a miracle. So, who knows? But the point I'm trying to make, when people make these claims about what they're going to do to improve their health, and they're going to live longer, they're going to take some supplement, some melon that grows in the Himalayan mountains, and maybe a fish that grows at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, or some other crap like that. It's going to make them live for 30, 40 years longer than they would otherwise. It's just a crazy claim. Now, there have been several longevity and health celebrities out there. For example, everybody should remember Jack LaLanne. If you're old enough, you remember him. Good old Jack LaLanne. Remember in his 60s and 70s, he was swimming and pulling rowboats and doing all kinds of tests of strength. But he was a little guy. He was on a plant-dominant diet. I don't think he was ever a vegan or vegetarian. And then, of course, he also had, for when it comes to marketing, he had Jay Cordage, the juice man. And these people inspired my dad to get juicers and juice up vegetables and fruits and all that other stuff, which to me just seemed kind of ridiculous. I mean, seriously, fruits and vegetable juice? That sounds awful, and it is. So, with that being said, does that mean that every one of these celebrity types is a scammer? Not really. I think some people genuinely believe that what they've done is the right thing to do. It's made them feel better. And really, when it comes down to it, although I don't believe that you can do anything to make your life longer, the length of your life is set by your genetics, and there's nothing you can do to change it. If your genetic age is 80 years old, nothing you can do is going to make you live a day longer. However, you could drop dead now, even if you were 15 or 16. Just step out in front of a car and see what happens. You may survive, but then again, you may not. I don't know. All right. We're almost at the Fresco y Mas. 147th at 152nd. Now again, it's at least 90 degrees, very hot and humid, and I don't feel tired. So if I'm on my way to a heart attack, that's a great way to go, I think. Now, to be honest, I got up this morning, and when I was eating breakfast, I had some chest pains. I'm thinking, uh-oh, am I going to get a heart attack? And then I realized that yesterday, I was doing a lot of work. I was moving concrete blocks from the truck to the cart. We were building a wall, so, that was something that I had kind of forgotten about. But it's already feeling better. And that's another thing. I kind of joke about the fact that I don't exercise. I don't do any kind of structured exercise. But I actually did when I was younger. I set up a home gym. I'd actually belonged to a regular gym as well. A friend of mine would go to. But it was kind of frustrating. Didn't make a whole lot of progress. And at the time, I was concentrating more on trying to start a business and make some money. Because I figured that the most important thing you can do when you're younger is to establish some type of income stream. So when you get older, you don't have to worry that much about money. Well, that didn't work too well. Sadly, the business that we set up basically got messed up because of just too much debt among the company. Too many arguments and so on. Boy, this sidewalk is a joke, isn't it? They try to make these developments look fancier by making the sidewalk crooked. I think we have the worst sidewalks in the U.S. I see other people riding bikes, walking. They don't have the mess that we do. But anyway, so after all that time, people they do their thing. They figure out, well, I'm gonna try this, I'm gonna try that, or whatever. Let's see. Okay. There's just a lot of traffic going in and out of these developments. It almost looks like rain. I hope it doesn't rain. Nothing worse than getting rained on when you're on the bicycle. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that if you're doing something and it's not working for you, normally you would feel it. I really don't believe that you could just feel good the whole time and then all of a sudden just drop dead. There's always going to be some kind of signs. And I think the best thing that we can do is just try and do a little research and see what works for us. And if it's not performing the way it should, then we may need to make some changes. But on the other hand, there's nothing that says that we can't make changes even if we are doing well. And that's something that I just want people to keep in mind. Anyway, here we are at the Fresco y Mas. They usually have meat marked down. It's Thursday, it should be about the right time. So let's see what we can find, if anything. I'll catch you later.